What up, gang? What is up? I hope everybody is having a great Tuesday. My sweet fiance has just entered the room to hand me my giant cup of water, which I definitely need after a long day. Thanks, babe. And we are concurrently live across platforms tonight on YouTube, on Facebook, on Rumble, on Getter. We linked back to Twitter since I don't think we're going to actually be streaming over there these days. And we are live on Locals tonight. Hi, everybody over on Locals. Hope everybody is having a great day. We have a big announcement today, which you've heard me say before. I will say it again. Tonight begins our Locals exclusive content with the relaunch of Outdated, our dating series, breaking down culture's biggest lies on dating and relationship culture and replacing them with the truth. That is found exclusively over on Locals. So make sure you use the link that I am dropping into our live chat right now. For whatever reason, Getter Gang, I do not know why it is not letting me put this link in the chat. It didn't yesterday either, but make sure you're using this link right now that I am dropping. There we go. In our chat to join our Locals community, and make sure that you are upgrading from a member status to a supporter or subscriber status in order to watch tonight's episode of Outdated and the other content that we have coming to you later this week on faith and the church and overall Christianity and why that should matter to Generation Z. I'm super excited for our stream tonight before we get to our dating content with Outdated tonight, though, because I really want to provide a different perspective and a different point of view on what I'm sure every single one of you have spent the entire day hearing a lot of other people talk about, and that is President Trump's arraignment that happened in New York today. Why it should matter, why it should be concerning to each and every one of us, regardless of whether or not you personally feel like you politically support President Donald Trump, but then also equally of concern, the level of hyperbole that I am hearing so many people take this arraignment to that is completely uncalled for and just goes to show how much we as Americans, from every aspect of the political spectrum, have placed our faith in government and in politicians and in partisanship, and in particular, a handful of people, rather than placing our faith in God, rather than placing our faith in something bigger than the brokenness of humanity, which impacts each and every one of us every day. That's not new information. That's not a new reality that humanity has been dealing with, this idea of political persecution and the weaponization of the justice system. But what I am seeing that's oddly new is people who tell us that God is the king of the universe, now somehow comparing this entire situation to God. We talked a little bit about it in some content last week. We're going to be breaking that down tonight. Overall, I am disgusted to see just how much the U.S. justice system has been weaponized for this particular case. Each and every one of us should feel that level of disgust, because it's concerning to each and every one of us. This is not a conservative or a liberal issue, a Republican or a Democrat issue. Frankly, this isn't even a political issue to begin with. This is an issue of authoritarianism and far too much government control being placed into the hands of a very small amount of people, taking away the most basic liberties that each and every one of us enjoy, and starting on this path towards authoritarianism and weaponizing trials, weaponizing crime, weaponizing the law to obtain a political agenda. And that sounds so hyperbolic. I know that it does, right? Because we can argue all day long whether or not any charges for any case are legitimate. But as we dive into the facts of this case, I want you to remember this. What we are talking about with this upcoming trial against President Donald Trump, with today's arraignment, with the 34 felony charges that President Donald Trump was charged with today in court and pled not guilty to, we aren't talking about justice. We're not really talking about delivering justice to anyone. We are talking about a power-hungry district attorney who, by the way, is George Soros funded, that has spent almost all of his time in office as a DA in the state of New York downplaying criminal behavior, downplaying felony charges, because He doesn't actually want to prosecute anyone who commits felonies. He's not actually interested in curbing crime in New York or anywhere for that matter. In fact, the majority of all felony charges that have happened under this DA's time in office have been downgraded to misdemeanors instead of treated like felonies. And instead, what you're seeing here in this case from a Soros-backed DA who's not very interested in punishing felony criminal behavior, you're seeing an escalation of misdemeanor level charges far past the statute of limitations on these charges to 34 felony level charges simply because you don't like the man that is running for president again or who sat in the Oval Office before. If that's not wildly concerning, I don't know what is. And we like to pretend like we still live in this country where you're innocent until proven guilty. We like to pretend that we live in this time that you are judged by a jury of your peers, that you are entitled to a fair trial, that a great movie could be made about the great case that you are being tried with. But do we? Do we still live in that time? I would argue no. I would argue we live in a time where you are guilty until proven innocent, where a court of public opinion far outweighs the meaning of a court of law, a court of a trial, a court of a jury, a court of your peers. I would argue that one's political affiliation is far more damning in a court than the crime that they actually allegedly committed. And that has been put on full display in former President Donald Trump's arraignment today. To catch you up over here, if you guys haven't listened to anything throughout the day, I'm sure many of you have. Also, I think we had like a weird setting turned on YouTube, but I just made sure that we were public. So make sure that you guys are sharing this link on YouTube with everybody else so that they have a chance to see our stream tonight. And thank you so much to those of you who are sharing. To catch you up on every major 30,000 foot fact of this case, just in case you haven't been engaging in content related to it all day, which many of you probably have, I want to jump over to this recent article that just got put out by The Hill about 20 minutes ago. The headline is Trump pleads not guilty to 34 felony counts and heads back to Florida, live coverage. So what we saw today, in case you weren't paying attention to the news and you were a smarter person than myself and you decided that you had a lot bigger things going on in your day than being glued to a computer screen for all of eternity, essentially what happened is President Trump went to New York, decides to turn himself in for this arraignment, works out a deal where he doesn't need to be handcuffed, which I think would have been fascinating to watch them try to do that. Apparently there's not going to be any mugshot either. So those of you who thought that there was going to be this like epic t-shirt of a Trump mugshot, it's not going to happen. He goes to New York, turns himself in. They do the arraignment. A federal judge ruled that there could be no television cameras inside the courtroom. So we don't really know in real time what happened. All we know is reports from what happened inside the courtroom. And then he came back to the state of Florida after pleading not guilty to the 34 felony counts of falsifying business records that were brought upon former President Trump by DA Alvin Bragg. This article is a really great, easy 30,000 foot overview of what's going on. So I thought we could take a few minutes and unpack it before I give you some of my commentary on it. Former President Trump has left New York after pleading not guilty to 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in connection with concealing hush money payments. Trump entered the plea before Judge Juan Merchan during the proceeding Tuesday afternoon in Lower Manhattan, becoming the first former president ever, this is important, first former president, and no sitting president has either, so really first president period, to be arraigned on criminal charges. Merchan, I don't know how to pronounce it. You guys might know better. Let me know in the live chat. Did not impose a gag order on the former president and set the next court date for December 4th. How pressing. How telling of how much of a pressing matter this actually is, right? Trump is now on his way back to Florida, where he is slated to make remarks at Mar-a-Lago at 8:15 p.m. You guys should definitely try to tune into that in the next couple of hours. That's part of the reason we are streaming early this week. Live updates that have been posted throughout the day at 5:38. So literally 1 minute ago, Trump posted on social media from his plane that he believed there were no surprises during his arraignment, expressing confidence in his innocence. He put in a post, just lifted off for Palm Beach, Florida. We'll be delivering remarks tonight at Mar-a-Lago at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. The hearing was shocking to many in that they had no surprises and therefore no case. Virtually every legal pundit has said that there's no case here. That is true. There was nothing done illegally. 521, Kevin McCarthy accused Alvin Bragg of trying to interfere with elections with the indictment of Trump. And McCarthy reiterated his commitment to having House Republicans investigate Bragg. Fascinating that we're calling this a threat worthy of interfering with elections. But these are the same people who will turn around and tell you that TikTok is the problem. Right? Will this be treated as a national security threat under the Restrict Act to interfere with elections? I don't know. You ask me. Separate conversation for another time. Alvin Bragg is attempting to interfere in our democratic processes by invoking federal law to bring politicized charges against President Trump, admittedly using federal funds, while at the same time arguing that the people's representatives in Congress lack jurisdiction to investigate this farce. Bragg's weaponization of the federal justice process will be held accountable by Congress. McCarthy references Bragg's office admitting that approximately $5,000 have been spent on the Trump investigation that came specifically from federal funds. Several different committee chairs in Congress are now looking to investigate DA Bragg and suggesting that there is some insanity going on here. Essentially, what all of these charges come down to, all 34 felony counts, it all comes down to the idea and the accusation that former President Trump falsified business records in paying hush money, not just to Stormy Daniels. There was another individual who allegedly received this hush money. It's very bizarre, and I'm not exactly sure what their goal here is. I'm not exactly sure what the legal strategy is here, to be completely transparent with you. I think genuinely anybody with half a brain can put together that what's happening is that DA Alvin Bragg is just putting together a whole host of charges, a whole barrage of charges, throwing them at the wall and desperately trying to see what sticks, right? I don't think this is remotely indicative of justice or actually charging someone on crimes based on the legitimacy of those crimes being committed. Dictatorship World over in our Rumble chat says the United States of America is a corporation, not a republic. In situations like this, it sure as hell feels like it, because you can bet your ass that DA Alvin Bragg is going to get a Netflix or an HBO special out of this, probably going to get a book deal out of this, may use this as his springboard to run for higher office like the Attorney General of New York or the Governor of New York, or even someday President of the United States as the quote-unquote good guy who took down evil former President Donald Trump. It absolutely is financially and politically and powerfully motivated beyond what we would just assume to be justice motivated. It's disgusting. And it's not surprising, but it is disgusting. So 30,000 foot overview. We are awaiting President Donald Trump's remarks from Mar-a-Lago at 8:15 p.m. Eastern. He is on his way back to the state of Florida right now. There is no gag order that was instituted or ruled from the judge, and the next time that he is supposed to appear in court is not even until December 4th. But in the meantime, he has pled not guilty to these 34 charges of felony accounts for allegedly falsifying business records. All of that to be said, this is a clear-cut weaponization of the United States justice system. And they're all saying the quiet part out loud. They're not trying to hide anything. Nancy Pelosi herself tweeted a couple of days ago that, don't worry, President Donald Trump was correctly arrested because nobody is above the law, including former President Donald Trump, and he'll have his opportunity to prove his innocence in court. Of course, then the Twitter police went in right after her to say, oh, no, she didn't really mean that. She falsely and accidentally and mistakenly said that he would have a chance to prove his innocence. She didn't really mean that. There's context here. Of course she meant it. And everybody is meaning it when they are saying that they are going to do absolutely anything possible to make sure that this man cannot run for office in 2024. They're extremely transparent about what their motivation is here. 34 felony charges of falsifying business records. Really? Why don't we just charge him with a hate crime while we're at it for being difficult or mean to Rosie O'Donnell? They're literally just throwing anything at the wall and trying to see what sticks. And I don't know where we go from here. I have warned against this very slippery decline into a weaponized justice system, into an authoritarian state through trials and through criminal prosecution and through a court of law for the last several years, namely since the Derek Chauvin case in the wake of the death of George Floyd, where we all knew Derek Chauvin was going to be held criminally liable for the death of George Floyd, even though it was impossible to prove beyond any shadow of a doubt that the reason for George Floyd's death was asphyxiation from Derek Chauvin kneeling on that person's neck. Period. There was no way to prove that. If you haven't already watched Candace Owens' incredible documentary on the subject, The Greatest Lie Ever Sold, go watch it because it is mind-blowingly fascinating and truly mind-bending to think about just how far things have gone in weaponizing the justice system and weaponizing trials and criminal prosecution. There was no evidence scientifically, anecdotally, criminally from the crime scene, nothing to suggest that this person was guilty. But we all knew before the first gavel ever hit the bench that Derek Chauvin was going to be spending the rest of his life in prison. Because in the 2020s in America, the court of public opinion is infinitely stronger than a court of law. And we have allowed the mob rule and the mostly peaceful, insanely violent protesters to go so far with zero consequences for their actions, with zero societal boundaries that we have set, saying enough is enough, that if you were to vote on the facts of a case in a jury, to rule on the facts of a case in a jury, you too would be putting your life at risk. So make no mistake about it. Former President Trump probably is going to be found guilty for at least one of these felony charges because we're already intimidating the jury. When the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, somebody who has been in our United States Congress longer than I've been alive, by many, many years, decades longer, says that you have an opportunity to prove your innocence, how can we honestly make the case that that does not influence the court of public opinion? When every single talking head on television from the left-wing establishment media, from CNN, from MSNBC, from everywhere in between, is crying tears of joy on the air to see former President Trump arraigned today, hooping and hollering and laughing and providing wall-to-wall 24/7 coverage, can we honestly say that that's not influencing the court of public opinion? When every single major celebrity is tweeting and posting on TikTok and is hooping and hollering all over Instagram their joy to see former President Donald Trump arraigned, even if they know nothing about the case, even if they know nothing about these 34 felony charges, even if they don't understand how a jury works, we know that that influences the court of public opinion. And as we've seen with politically motivated, high-profile cases in the last few years, namely, great example, the Derek Chauvin case, when the court of public opinion is not on your side, in the 2020s in America, you are already guilty before you even walk into that courtroom. And that is a problem. Because even if you support President Trump, even if you don't support President Trump, either way, this threatens all of us, each and every one of us in the United States and around the world. Our justice system was the inspiration for free countries all over the world. And when our justice system, the one that believes that you are innocent until you are proven guilty, has turned this completely on its head to mean the opposite, this will impact the culture of the entire world as we know it. And here at home, in America, it may be nice if you don't like President Trump to see him sit in a courtroom and have to fight for his legacy and fight for his opportunities to live freely as a citizen in the United States. Even when you know this case is completely stupid and has no merits whatsoever. It might be nice to see that today, but what happens a few decades from now when the people you don't like are in charge? And the same thing is happening to your favorite politicians, where there's no merits for the basis of those cases. What happens when the people in charge start redefining hate speech to be the things that you're saying? What happens when the people in charge start to persecute you for going against the court of public opinion? I don't care what you think about former President Trump. You could love him. You could hate him. You could hate his guts. But this case is monumental and unprecedented to the level that it should concern each and every one of us. Because if this case continues the way that it has been, you can bet your ass they will come after you next, regardless of whether you like him or agree with him or not. GH over on YouTube says, you literally sound like you should be spending more time reading instead of gabbing on a YouTube stream, and all I'm hearing from you is whine, 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 wah, wah, wah. Well, I'm sure you're actually going to love what I have to say next. At the same time, as concerning as this case is, the level to which people are taking it goes to show me that we are putting our faith in the wrong place in the United States, as conservatives in particular. The same people who are going to go to church and post a lot of stuff on Instagram this weekend about their salvation from Jesus Christ, who say that Jesus is king no matter who is the president, who say that this world is not our home, the next world is our home, are somehow comparing this court case, which is concerning. We've spent the last 30 minutes talking about it, which is concerning and should be alarming for each and every one of us. But somehow they are comparing this case to the arrest, torture, and crucifixion of Jesus. I wish I was making this up, but throughout the last several weeks, all over the internet, I have seen tweets, videos, posts, the whole nine, you name it, comparing this arraignment to Jesus Christ being arrested by the Romans, being put on trial with everybody in the gallery screaming, crucify him, being sentenced to death, being scourged in the streets, and being crucified brutally for the salvation of all of humanity to all be the same thing. The President Trump's arrest is the exact same thing as what is going on. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. Let's take a listen, because I think you should hear it directly from the source.
Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government. There have been many people throughout history that have been arrested and persecuted by radical, corrupt governments. And it's beginning today in New York City. And I just can't believe it's happening, but I'll always support him. He's done nothing wrong. President Trump is joining some of the most...
Let's watch that again, because when I first heard this, I thought there's no way this could possibly be true. But it did. It happened. It is true. Let's watch it again.
President Trump is joining some of the most incredible people in history being arrested today. Nelson Mandela was arrested, served time in prison. Jesus was arrested and murdered by the Roman government. There have been many people throughout history that have been arrested and persecuted by radical, corrupt governments. And it's beginning today in New York City. And I just can't believe it's happening, but I'll always support him. He's done nothing wrong. President Trump is joining...
So a lot to unpack here. A lot, including this tweet that we spent a lot of time talking about last week about the idea that Jesus was arrested during Holy Week and now Trump will be arrested during Holy Week. And the answer is to just inevitably support Trump because it's comparable to the arrest of Jesus. I don't know who needs to be reminded of this. Donald Trump or Barack Obama or George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or Teddy Roosevelt or JFK or FDR will never be on the same caliber as Jesus Christ in any way, shape, or form. The arrest of Jesus Christ, as prophesied throughout all of the Old and New Testament, as required for the death of Jesus, the brutal execution of Jesus, for the salvation of all of humanity, is not the same thing as any president, former or sitting, being impeached, being served with criminal charges, being arrested, being arraigned, or being put in prison. Apples and oranges. Completely different scenarios. And I don't know where this comparison came from. I don't know why all of a sudden literally dozens of people are putting posts out about this all over social media in the last few weeks. And then they're going to turn around and post about going to Easter service this weekend. It's mind-blowing to me. But it goes to tell me one thing. Without trying to remotely analyze the motives of these people, where this is coming from, how wild it truly all is, one thing has become abundantly clear to me. We are putting our faith in the wrong place. And it's tempting. It's tempting to do that because putting your faith in God is hard. Putting your faith in something that is outside of this world, that is bigger than this world, is a very difficult thing to do. I choose to do it every day, knowing that this world is incredibly broken and lost and hurting. But it's not easy. It's never easy for any of us. When we are this devastated, when our whole world is falling apart to the point that we need to compare the arrest of Trump, which frankly anyone logically could have seen coming throughout all of the campaign, throughout all of the first term as president, throughout all of this next campaign, knowing that these people will literally do anything to make sure that this man cannot run for president again. If they have not proved that to you already, wake up, sis, because they absolutely will do anything to make sure he cannot run for president again. When we are this shocked and amazed and devastated that this is happening, we have put too much faith in humanity. In either President Trump himself, which is way too much a burden for one person to bear, in a party or a political movement or a partisan side of the aisle that we personally happen to agree with, in a government system that ultimately is a human institution. It's not an institution of God. So of course it's going to be imperfect and weaponized and used to tear down political enemies that people disagree with when they are in power. That's literally the story of all of human history. None of this should be so shocking to the point that we feel the need to compare this to Jesus. We should be praying for this situation, for our institutions to not be weaponized against us, for actual justice to be delivered and not a miscarriage of justice, for the truth to be revealed in this case instead of manipulation of the truth in order to end a certain end goal here with this trial. But it is not the same thing as Jesus Christ being arrested during Holy Week, being brutally tortured, being crucified, and laying down his life for the salvation of all of humanity. Not even comparable. I am a citizen of the United States of America. I am a proud American. I am a patriotic American. I will fight like hell for the future of America until the last day that I have to do that. But nothing that I do as an American will ever be as important as me fighting for being a citizen of heaven, as me fighting to make this world a little bit more like the next one. Because ultimately, I live in America today. I'm not going to live in America for eternity. I'm not a citizen of America for eternity. I'm a citizen of heaven for eternity. And my faith can never be placed in a president or a political party or a government institution. I have to get up every day and consciously, voluntarily choose to put my faith in something much more difficult than that, much more hard to wrap my brain around than that. And that is God. That is something that's bigger than this world. And that shouldn't make you afraid. That shouldn't make you angry. That shouldn't shock and amaze you. Instead, that should be such a sigh of relief. Because ultimately, we don't have to put our faith in imperfect people. We don't have to put our faith in a president who has to run for office and campaign to get votes. We don't have to put our faith in a political candidate or a political party that ultimately has an agenda. We don't have to put our faith in an R or a D next to our name, or a government institution, or a DA, or a branch of our government. We can put our faith in something so much more reliable than that. So if you feel like me and you're looking around at this case and you're thinking, how the hell did we get here? This is insane. What can I do to fight against it? Speak up. Let people know this is not okay. Call Alvin Bragg's office and let him know just how bad the weaponization of the justice system has become under his leadership. But don't lose hope and don't lose faith, because your faith should not be placed in this DA or this courtroom or this president or this political party. Your faith is in God. And ultimately, there is a greater plan for humanity. Jesus Christ is coming back. There is a pathway to salvation for everyone. It is easy to get caught up in the hyperbole of partisan politics every single day, in the back and forth tug of war between Democrats and Republicans, between conservatives versus liberals, between socialists and libertarians, between everybody. That feels so big all the time and drives so much of our behavior, so much of our rhetoric, so much of our trajectory as a nation. But that is not the end of our story. And when we constantly put ourselves in this astronaut helmet bubble, that is the end-all be-all of life, we do ourselves a disservice. The best way to beat this unprecedented, horrifying, unjust criminal charging of a former president, which is scary, and we should be scared by that, is not to compare this to Christ, is not to put our faith in this president or in this DA or in this courtroom. It's to speak out about the injustice, but simultaneously know that our faith is in something bigger. And when we continuously allow just the unchecked insanity to go viral all over the internet without replacing it with the truth, that's when things continue to spiral out of control. So look, I'm not going to get zillions of views on this live stream tonight. I'm not. I'm glad that all of you are here, but I'm not a huge creator. I'm not a huge podcast host. I'm not a congresswoman. I'm not someone with hundreds of thousands of followers on Twitter. I have my little 30,000 gang strong over there. I don't go on Fox News every single day. I don't have the platform that the people perpetrating this narrative that Trump equals Jesus with this arrest have. But I hope that this resonated with someone. Because if we don't speak up with the truth when we have the opportunity to, that opportunity will be gone. And I don't know if the people who need to hear this are ultimately going to have the opportunity to. I don't know. I hope they do. I sincerely hope they do. But at the end of the day, I did my part in just speaking the truth into a world rejecting the concept of truth in whatever way that I can. And I want to challenge each and every one of you to do that too. It's really difficult when the people that are in your camp and on your side are also living in a world of lies. But that's a very biblical reality. We know that as our world continues to descend into chaos and madness and more more insanity than we've ever seen before, that all truth will become lies and lies will become truth. That people will be misled, that even believers are going to be misled. So don't be surprised when the people who are, quote unquote, your people are also living in a state outside of truth. Truth is difficult to hear, and we're naturally defensive as human beings. But it's our opportunity, and beyond that, our obligation to speak up and fight for truth, even from the inside out of our own communities. And I can't look at another post on social media comparing Donald Trump to Jesus with this arrest in the middle of Holy Week as we prepare to celebrate the sacraments on Easter weekend without calling it out for what it is. Is this a wild miscarriage of justice? Yes. Is the concept of being guilty until proven innocent completely ass backwards from how we are supposed to govern as the United States of America? Yes. Is it sickeningly hyperbolic and blasphemous to compare the arrest of Jesus Christ to the arrest of Donald Trump? Also, yes. And I think we forget that multiple things can be true at exactly the same time. But that is a reality. So stop buying into the lies. Stop feeding into the extremism on both sides. Learn how to courageously and independently think for yourself. It's difficult. It's not the easy button road. It's going to take a whole hell of a lot more work. But it is worth it. It's worth it. You guys, super fun, exciting announcement. In a couple of hours, we are premiering the first episode of Outdated over on Locals. I am dropping our chat over here I'm dropping our link over in the live chat. My brain is all over the place. Dropping our link in the chat right now. Sorry, Getter Gang, I gotta retype it in here. I don't know why it's not letting me copy or paste anything. Use that link to join our Locals community tonight. We've got several hundred of you that already have joined us over there. Make sure you have upgraded from member to supporter or subscriber, whatever that means for you, to watch the first episode of Outdated tonight. We are going to be doing a little overview over what the series is going to cover and then tackling a handful of culture's biggest lies when it comes to dating and relationship culture, how we can combat those lies with the truth, and why committed relationships, marriage, and family are still worth pursuing in an anti-marriage world. I do want to share a really fun tidbit and analysis with you about our content that I often forget because it's super easy to lose sight of the big picture when you're just constantly thinking as a creator, what post I have to put out today, or responding to a zillion comments, or trying to get one more follower or one more subscriber to make sure more people have an opportunity to watch the stream. I tend to get so bogged down by the little details that I forget about the big picture. And today I was sending out an email to our email list, which you can join by going to my website and joining from there. And I went back through the analytics that I have on several different social media platforms and was reminded of how unbelievably grateful I am that God has given me this platform to talk to so many of you on a day-by-day basis, and just how far we've come since I started doing this after my college graduation. In the last 90 days, since the beginning of the year, we have reached 15.5 million unique people on Instagram. And on Instagram, we've grown by 100,000 new followers since the beginning of the year alone, which blows my mind because I feel like I waited so long to hit 100K on Instagram, and now we've done that in 3 months, which absolutely blows my mind. On TikTok, in the last 60 days, so less than the last 90 days, since the beginning of February, we've obtained 10 million unique video views and 57,000 new followers in the last 60 days. Our live stream is concurrently reaching thousands of live viewers across platforms each and every day, and is only continuing to grow, including our subscriber base on YouTube, on Rumble, and of course our OG Getter Gang. You guys, I never would explode this significantly from a perspective of reach, of conversation, of opportunity to have for this opportunity and platform that truthfully is not mine. I give it all to God because I don't know what is happening with really is happening right. So to each and every one of you that comment in the live chat, that donate in our super chats, and of course that go above and beyond on right now. It is totally free to engage in these live streams. It always will be, but most importantly is an opportunity for real dialogue in to have in the era of viral clickbait and owning the libs and breaking down some of these more complex topics from a Gen Z perspective. Day basis until we've changed as many hearts and minds as humanly possible. But I want to say none of this would be possible without each and every one of you here to share content, to subscribe, to follow, to get those links to other people. None of it would be possible without each and every one of you. So thank you. Thank you so very much. Join us over on Locals. I think I set our stream tonight for 9 p.m. Eastern for our first episode of Outdated. Our first episode of Domus is coming this Thursday, coming next after Outdated this Thursday evening. So join us over on Locals for that as well. We will see you for the stream tomorrow night. All kinds of fun stuff coming in the pipeline. Love each and every one of you, and thank you for being here.